So my buddy Ash has kindly allowed me to have a go in his Mark II Focus ST running Dreamscience Mod X, about 320-ish horsepower and loads of torque. You can see it behind me here. It's a lovely car. So yeah, having a go in that, see how it compares to the RS, and just yeah, having a good time in it really. So hope you enjoy the video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you like and subscribe. Appreciate it. The Mark II Focus ST, or ST225 as it is often known, was launched back in 2005 and quickly became a hot hatch favourite. Even today, it is still remembered for being called the Focus Asbo on Top Gear by Jeremy Clarkson when it was first released. This was of course largely due to its signature electric orange paint job that many of the press cars wore, and of course its penchant for lift-off oversteer. That engine definitely helped its popularity too, and what an engine it is. As Ford owned Volvo at the time, they decided to fit the car with a version of the well-known Volvo T5 engine, which frankly could be one of the best decisions that Ford ever made. As standard, the car produced more power and torque than the Mark I Focus RS, and of course it made that fantastic warbly 5-pot sound that is still loved by many to this day. This particular ST of course is far from standard, as you can see. It started life as a pre-facelift ST3 spec car, with the current owner purchasing it standard and carrying out the majority of the work himself. Specs wise, the list is quite long, and the car features the Dreamscience Mod X map, a Cobra full exhaust system minus the downpipe, an Airtec Stage 2 intercooler, a Ram Air induction kit with Airtec crossover, RS clutch and flywheel, Ram Air RS style ECU relocation kit, pro silicone hoses, Rotaform wheels with Michelin PS4 tyres all round, custom front grills, custom blacked out headlights, Maxxton rear diffuser, RS part splitter and side skirts, H&R 40/20 lowering springs, Airtec cage and custom false floor, Airtec short shifter, smoked facelift rear lights, facelift wing mirrors, and a rear wiper delete. The car hasn't been dynoed, but it's likely to be around the 315 to 320-ish brake horsepower mark, with a massive 340 to 360 foot-pounds of torque. So I've shown you around and taken you on a bit of a tour of this Mark II Focus ST. Now it's time to find out what it's like on the road. I've got a bit of a soft spot for these ST225s. You know, I've got my Mark II RS, which is obviously the flagship of these Mark II Focuses. But I did actually used to own an ST225 a few years ago. Before I had kids, I had a Mark II facelift, so it was on an 08 plate in silver. Did a little bit to it, had a stage 1 map on it, a couple of other little bits, D-res exhaust, nothing like this. But I absolutely loved it, and that's kind of what got me into these cars and what got me wanting the RS really. So yeah, absolutely love these things, and they're a great car if you just want to buy something. Like even standards, they drive really well, they sound good, you know, for what they are, and they're good value. And if you want to just kind of like add to it over time, once you get the bug, it's kind of no stopping, I guess, really. But you know, this thing's running over 300 horsepower now, so I have no doubts this would keep up nicely with a standard RS. Sounds the part, looks the part. Yeah, really cool car. Great if you're just looking for a car, you know, to have a bit of fun with and to be able to mess around with it. You can still daily drive it as well, but it's a little bit more in your face, I guess, than your average daily driver. But it's still a Focus at the end of the day. Oh, and obviously this one's got a cage in the back, so I don't know if you can see it on this footage, but he's got no rear seats, got a cage there. It's yeah, probably a little bit less practical than it would be otherwise. So yeah, talking about that clutch, obviously on these Mark IIs, if you start mapping them, modding them, increasing the torque significantly. It's really common for the standard ST clutch to slip. They're just not up for the job. And by far the most common upgrade is to fit the RS clutch and flywheel. It's not especially cheap. I think these days, correct me if I'm wrong, around kind of 400-500 quid for the parts. If you have it done at a garage, something like 500-ish labour, give or take, depending on where you go. So it's not a cheap mod. Fun fact, me and Ash actually fitted this one on his driveway, and no, it was not an easy job. Probably wouldn't want to do it again, but we did, and it works, so, you know, happy days. But yeah, one thing you will notice if you drive one of these and it has an RS clutch is the clutch is so much heavier once you've had the RS clutch fitted on here. Obviously I have a Mark II RS which has the same clutch. It's a lot lighter on the RS. I think that's to do with the hydraulics. But yeah, it's really stiff on here, and if you're not used to it, like the first time you drive this, you probably still won't, not gonna lie. And I've driven this car a couple of times and I have to think about it if I get back into it. So but yeah, now it's got that clutch, it can take, you know, a decent chunk of power, decent chunk of torque that can be kind of thrown at it. Definitely a must-do mod if you're, you know, going to mod your ST, or if you're buying one that you plan to mod. If you can, to be honest, to save the money, I'd recommend buying one that's already got that. Just listen to that induction kit, it does sound really cool. There's a lot more induction noise in this than my RS, which has the mounting airbox and mounting air filter. So yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I'm not even putting my foot down at the moment as well. You can hear the exhaust rumbling away. Absolutely awesome. Got a short shifter here as well. I really like that. I'm tempted to fit something like that into my RS, to be honest. These cars, handling wise, they're pretty good out the box. They're not, you can tell it's not quite as sharp as the RS. This one's obviously been lowered, so that does help a little bit with like the body control and everything. But for what it is, you know, for a kind of middle range hot hatch, I guess, back in the day, it handles well. And yeah, I think the only thing with these, if you've ever driven one of these ST225s or RSs, is kind of the same on both of them really. You do feel they feel like quite a big hot hatch. They certainly feel like quite a lot bigger than the Fiesta STs and that kind of stuff. You can also feel, definitely with that 5-pot motor in front, I always think these feel quite sort of front heavy, and you can definitely feel the weight of that engine when you're chucking it into the corners. So I think they're great obviously on the B roads. I think they're a little bit less of a B road kind of car than maybe a tuned up Fiesta ST like the one I drove recently. They always feel like a bit of a muscle car in some ways. I know that's kind of silly, and it's not like it's no Mustang and it's not rear wheel drive or whatever, but I think with that motor and the kind of big lump in the front and the big helpings of torque there, it kind of has that vibe to it a little bit. Brakes are decent. They're not uprated on this one. Standard ones are alright. If you want to go big power, you probably want to put a big brake kit on there or something like that. But nothing wrong with the standard brakes for most people. He's got like the uprated engine and gearbox it can probably get pretty drony on the motorway or whatever, but it's not what this car's all about, is it, at the end of the day? Watch that clutch when I pull away. The Mod X is not a pop and bang map or anything like that, but I know from when I've been following Ash in a convoy a few times that this thing does let some nice pops and bangs out. Let's give it some beans in third in a minute and see what it's like. Kind of to the next level up, he was talking about Mod X RS. I think the next one is on Dreamscience. The RS injectors, so you need the downpipe as well. I think that was about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think that brings it up to around about like 340. I bet there'd be nothing in it there, honestly. And to be honest, there's probably very, very little in it now at this point. So yeah, a lot of bang for your buck with this. I didn't have the RS, I would totally have done these again. I think kind of that 340-ish figure is kind of as much as you can go to without starting to think about bigger turbo or hybrid turbo. You know, start want to think about kind of forging the internals and things like that. So yeah, I think kind of the low to mid 300s is a great place for these to be, and you get a lot of performance out of them for that. Or with that, one thing that is not so bad here in this kind of weather is you know, it's pretty good conditions. If one thing you do notice with the ST versus the RS, especially at this kind of power level, is the RS does put the power down a little bit better. This car doesn't have a limited slip diff or anything. You can obviously fit one if you want to. The RS has got its LSD and it's also got its Revo knuckle suspension setup, and I definitely noticed that the RS puts the power down better. This is much more willing to like want to kick in with the traction control, especially in the lower gears. So I guess that, you know, that is one downside, but you can't have it all with the ST, otherwise there wouldn't be an RS, right? But you probably get, like, with especially a modified one, you're probably getting 80% of the car that you get with the RS for a lot less cash, especially these days. So definitely not to be sniffed at. These ST3 Recaros in here are still pretty good as well. Really comfy, supportive enough. Yeah, they're not the buckets like the RS, but they're nice seats nonetheless. Also, don't ever buy one of these cars thinking you're going to get even vaguely decent MPG out of them. They're not very good at MPG. It's not why you buy it, obviously, but just as an FYI, with the fuel prices at the moment, if you're thinking of dailying one of these, from my personal experience, I think Ash's has been similar, if not slightly worse. I used to get out of my old ST around 22 miles per gallon, kind of dailying it. I actually get more out of my RS at the minute, getting about 28, but I'm only driving that evenings and weekends. So yeah, they're not great. I think the most I ever had out of it was like 31, 32, something like that on a run, a nice motorway run with steady speed. So just so you know what you're getting into, really. Getting used to that clutch now. Try third gear then, see how that goes. Oh yeah, so much fun, honestly. And the noise as well. there you have it guys, I've taken you for a little tour of this modified Mark II Focus ST, and I've taken you for a drive to show you what it's like on the road. It was a lot of fun to drive and a real credit to its owner who has clearly put a lot of work into it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do remember to like, comment and subscribe, it is really appreciated. I have lots more content planned around my Focus RS and also some other interesting cars too, so stay tuned to my channel if that sounds like your sort of thing. Anyway, I'll leave you with a few more clips of that glorious 5-pot noise before I go. Enjoy it guys.